Welcome back to the Courageous Pivot podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Telpner, and I am thrilled to have you joining me for another episode where I have a very special guest, Mr. Sean Croxton. I first crossed paths with Sean way back in the day. He was the pioneer leader in health podcasting, first in YouTube videos back in 2007, 2008. And then he started his podcast, Underground Wellness, where I was fortunate enough to be a guest near the end of the show, just before he called it quits. We talk about his journey through that show and building his summits and the work that he did then into the mindset work, money work, and now what he's doing with his show, Black Excellence Daily. We talk about the powerful need to keep an open mind, to change your mind, to not succumb to victimhood as it relates to circumstance, to race, to history. We get into a whole lot of big topics, big and important topics. And like all my guests, there are things that may be shared that you do not agree with or do not align with, which again is a beautiful thing. You don't need to. Isn't that amazing? You don't need to agree with everybody you learn from. You can still distill the knowledge that serves you to live to your fullest potential and optimally brave the micro or massive courageous pivot that is in your heart. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Sean Croxton, who is the host of the Quote of the Day show, as well as Black Excellence Daily. He is also the creator of Money Mind Academy, which is an online course that helps students transform their relationship with money. As I said, we go deep, we go wide, we go far. We had a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with Sean, and I hope you enjoy listening. Welcome, Sean Croxton, to the Courageous Pivot podcast. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me here.
So you had me on Underground Wellness, maybe the second last episode of the show.
Really? Was it?
It
was toward the end.
I'm a persistent person. That's how I landed my husband. It's how I landed my spot on your show. And it was the single most stressful interview of my life.
Why? What did I do?
You asked really hard questions. Like you really put me on the spot with stuff I did not want to talk about publicly. It's payback.
What did we talk about? What did we talk about?
I'll tell you right now. We can get this out of the way now. There was two questions that I remember, and I remember where I was when you asked me because I was pacing in my bedroom at my old house. And my heart was just racing and I was so sweaty after this interview. The first question was, you were asking me about sort of my path of getting sick. And you said to me, did the vaccines cause your illness? I had been diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Mm-hmm. And I just danced around that question because I did not want to go there.
I can't believe I asked that. Huh.
And you wouldn't let it go.
Where did that question come from? Like, did you write about that somewhere? Was it in a book or something that you wrote? Because I'm sure it didn't come out of nowhere.
It was in a book that I had written. And part of my story was that I got these vaccinations to go travel in Africa and had started getting sick shortly thereafter. And you wanted this definite answer. And I was like, oh, God. Anyway, it's 2025. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah. In hindsight, I should apologize for that. I probably shouldn't press so much. Yeah.
No way. It was, I know it was powerful. And it was confronting because it's like, why am I afraid to state something that's factual, even though it is challenging for other people to accept or believe because it's not what is the popular opinion.
Yeah. And this was a long time ago. This was probably 2015. That's when I did my last Underground Wellness interview. So that's wild. It's kind of crazy, you know, in 2025 to look at the health space and be like, damn, I was talking about that like 15 years ago. You know, it's kind of nuts how it's become so mainstream. I was thinking about bringing Underground Wellness Radio back, and I still may. But I think I might have to change the name because this information, it's not underground anymore. It's very, very mainstream now. It's a trip, man. Sometimes I'll watch stuff and I'll be like, wow, they're just now starting to talk about this. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. My husband and I, because we both started around the time you started your show, and we're both like, I think we're on to something now, finally. But it goes back to that idea that, what happens in a lab, it takes 17 years to end up in conventional medical practice. And it's pretty much the same in things that, we talk about in the fringe, in holistic health and wellness, ultimately always ends up out there when it's real and true, because the truth always comes out.
Yeah, it does. And people become more and more receptive to it, and things just start to become mainstream over time. A lot of it doesn't, of course, but there are big pillars of it that have. And so I'm really happy about that. Just eating real food.
Yeah.
It kind of seemed really common sense back then, but you would still get pushback over it. It's like, no, it's food. It's what you're supposed to eat. And it still kind of blows my mind how much pushback I would get over just eating real food. But it's just the world we live in.
You were, I would say, one of the major pioneers. You have been in a lot of things, in the health world, in the real food world, in podcasting. So the other question, which I want to get to the answer, I'm going to ask you back and I'm going to try and get to the answer. But the other question you asked me that had me sweating was, what was special about me that enabled me to heal from something that most people don't heal from? And I was like, I don't know. And the answer is that I'm exceptional and I work really, really hard and I don't take things at face value and I question everything until I get to the truth. And I want to understand how you got to be who you are for the same reason, when you've challenged a lot of beliefs, and I want to know how you got to be that way. So when you what were you doing before you started Underground Wellness in 2008 or 2009?
I was a personal trainer at the San Diego State University Rec Center. I did that from 2001 till about 2008.
And then did you quit that and started podcasting full time when no one else was actually making a living off podcasting? Is that what happened?
Yeah, in 2007 is when I started my YouTube channel. It grew really fast, relatively. Back then you had 600 subscribers, like you were a big deal. Like, oh my God, you have 600 subscribers. And I started to get clients from my YouTube following. I quit my personal training job. I want to say that summer of 2007, maybe it's 2008. I can't remember. But I stopped personal training so I could start my online business and start making money online through Underground Wellness. I just partied way too hard that summer and I had to actually go back to being a personal trainer. So I did that for another year and then I went full time. But I did my first podcast recording, I want to say in 2008, October, maybe 16th of 2008. And the reason that I did that is because somebody had interviewed me on Blog Talk Radio. I forget the name of the podcast. It was so long ago. And I was like, wait, you can have your own, we didn't call them podcasts back then. You can have your own online radio show, like for free. And he's like, yeah, they give you like a half hour or an hour every day. And you can just sign up and you can interview people. And one thing that I really wanted to do when I was in high school, I remember my mom took me to this kind of college guidance. I'm not sure exactly what he was, but I remember sitting across the desk from him with my mom. And he asked me, like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I kind of want to be on the radio and I want to be involved in business. And he kind of like, dismissed them. And it's kind of weird that, moving forward, 10, 15 years from then, I got into radio, but just in a very different way, a way that didn't exist when I was in high school.
Right. And I had forgotten that it started YouTube because I just remembered you had your whiteboard and stuff, right? Was that?
Yeah, it was a whiteboard, but at first it wasn't a whiteboard. At first it was just like a clipboard with a piece of paper on it. And I was just like draw stuff on that. And then I eventually moved into another apartment. I got a whiteboard, and then we did like chalkboard paint. And so we would write on the wall, or I would write on the wall and break stuff down. And so, when people learn, it's one thing to hear it, but what they really want to do is see it. They want to see the arrows. They want to see, A leads to B leads to C. And so I did a really good job back then of visually teaching things so they can walk away going, oh, there was that thing that was very complex that I didn't fully understand. Now I've watched this video and I get it. Because if there's one thing that, our target audience, if we're in the health space, they really want is they want to understand something. They don't want things to be complex. They want their doctors to simplify things. Unfortunately, most doctors and actually a lot of health professionals, they have that expert's curse where they know too much. And they speak on a 15th grade level when everybody else is on the 5th. And so in order for me to understand something, that's how I learn. Take something complex, break it down as simply as I can, and then I'll get it. And I think everybody else learns that way as well.
So what was it that you had left, a job that people knew what that was, as a personal trainer, to do something that kind of no one really knew you could make a living on YouTube? And then in 2009, what happened? You changed your mind and deleted everything?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. You did some research. So one thing that I didn't handle so well in the beginning of my online journey was the haters. I had a really hard time with negative comments. It just was not my thing. I'm just this guy who's just going out there and trying to help people in a positive way. And, you post a video and there's good comments there, but there's also that one or two comments that just gnaw at you. And so, I think it really came to a tipping point. There was a couple things. Number one, Durian Ryder would make these videos about me. This guy, I think he might have been Australian.
I remember that guy.
Yeah, Sean Croxton is a scam artist. Is this your health expert, Sean Croxton? And he would put pictures of me on my 30th birthday pub crawl, me drinking a beer. Does your health expert drink beer? And he made multiple videos. And then one day I was in a Facebook email thread with one of my followers. And, I go onto YouTube and I open up one of my videos to read the comments, and I see over in the related videos something about me that wasn't made by me. And I tap on it, and this guy, it was a totally positive, totally normal direct message thread. And he took the words and rearranged them and made me look like this terrible individual. And that really, really bothered me a lot. Because whenever somebody watched one of my videos, it would come up right there in related videos. And I just really cared a lot about what people thought about me back then. I really don't care anymore. But back then it was really hard to develop that thick skin. So anyway, I remember one morning, 2009, 2010, one of those years, I was just in bed in my apartment and I was like, forget it. I want to be anonymous. I just want to go back to personal training, never do any of this stuff again. And so I deleted my Facebook, Twitter, all my YouTube videos, and I was just done. And it felt really good for about a day. And then I was like, oh, what have I done? Right? What have I done? And so, fortunately, I was able to reactivate the Twitter account, and I think the Facebook account, not lose any people. But YouTube, I had to individually re-upload each video, which really bothered people who followed me. They're like, dude, we already seen this. I'm like, why are you uploading old stuff? So I lost a lot of followers from that. But, it is what it is, and I learned from it, and just can't let the haters get to you.
What did you learn from it? How did it shift how you went forward, continuing to create content I was on YouTube early too, and people were horrible, about your appearance, about everything was up for grabs. At least that was my experience. So how did you move forward and keep creating and keep putting yourself out there?
Well, people still are like that.
Yeah. Yes.
You should read my comments sometimes. I'm like, really? But to me, it's funny though now. But I think the lesson was, you're never going to make everybody happy. Also, to kind of add to that story, I want to say the weekend after I did that, I was at a landmark advanced course seminar, And there was a woman there who worked for the Sinatra family. And I told her this story. I told this story in my group. And she says, hey, I work for the Sinatra family. One thing that I've always learned from them is that if people aren't talking bad about you, you're not making a difference. And I was like, yeah, I think that's the one thing that really just kind of hit me like, okay, my purpose here on this earth is to make a difference. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to deal with these people. And sometimes, there have been times, Meghan, where I've written a newsletter and somebody has like responded in a very negative way. And a week later, they'll email me again and be like, hey, man, I'm sorry about that. I was having a really bad day. And I'll be like, oh, okay. So sometimes people, they're just having a bad day. Sometimes it's a 10-year-old kid on YouTube, maybe on their parents' account, whatever it may be. So you never really know what somebody's going through when they do that. And so I think that's really what I've learned from it. And, over time, I've definitely thickened up my skin to the point where I don't think any words can damage me anymore.
We are going to take a brief break because I wanted to share with you a really powerful course that I created just for you and for those of us who want to pivot. A big part of being able to do so without a lot of fear or worry was understanding my money. Money Mastery is a course I created after doing my pivot because it had been in my heart for so long, even though it had nothing to do with any of the work I was doing. I figured out how money could work for me, how I could empower myself to understand my overall cost of living, and ultimately how to run my personal finances like a successful, profitable small business. In Money Mastery, I break this down for you, starting with your core values, because this has to work for you. We're going to look at your annual spending, and trust me, this is not terrifying. You don't have to share your results with anyone, and knowing is powerful. We're then going to look at your income, what's actually coming in, and understanding what you need to live the life you want to be living. We go through strategies on how to earn more, how to spend less, where and how to invest, what compounding interest can do over the short term and the long term, how to organize your bank accounts, the little bitty simple details that everyone should be learning before they even leave high school, let alone grow up, buy houses, do all the things that adults do. This course is powerful. It's simple to follow. It was designed for everyday people to be able to understand and be empowered with their money. Again, knowledge is power. And once you know, you can rest easy knowing you have enough, and also how to effectively plan for your future. Go to courageouspivot.com and scroll down. You'll see a link to Money Mastery and a 30% off discount code for Courageous Pivot listeners. Get the knowledge you need, set realistic and doable goals, and make it happen. Again, go to courageouspivot.com, scroll down to Money Mastery where you'll find a 30% off link and coupon code to save on your Money Mastery investment, an investment that will have incredible returns. I think you're going to love this. And so you grew up, you have a sister?
A brother,
and you grew up with a single mom.
Yeah, from age 10 and after. Single mom, yes.
At the same time, you developed this work ethic that sort of defied some stereotypes and a lot of things that you're challenging now. Where did that come from? What experiences did you have that made you believe that you could be an entrepreneur and succeed at it and have a level of security and specifically financial security?
I think for me, it was mostly exposure. I am an entrepreneur's son. And my dad was an entrepreneur. And so as long as I can remember, I can recall my father doing very entrepreneurial things. I would go to the swap meet with him on the weekends, and he would sell stun guns and butterfly knives and Rambo knives and bootleg Gucci and Guess sweatshirts and stuff like that, So I always saw that. I mean, I think he probably started doing that when I was 6 years old. And so I would go out there and I would help him, set the thing up, and I would kind of sit there in his van and kind of watch what's going on. And then when he would have to go pee, I would watch the stand, and maybe every once in a while transact with somebody. And so that's where I learned entrepreneurship. And I think that's one of the common denominators for the most part among entrepreneurs, is that we had very early exposure to it. And so I saw it. I remember the magazine Entrepreneur. And as a 5 or 6 year old going like, what, I get having a hard time sounding that out. Like what is that? What is that? And so, it was just mostly exposure. And in terms of like, hard work, I honestly don't think I'm that hard of a worker, really. I am a creative worker. I am somebody who has the ability to have a feel for what people want and what people will enjoy and what people will share with other people. And, by putting out that kind of content, it allows me to create these huge communities. Like if you were to ask me like what my strength is, it would be like, building huge communities, like building audiences online. I can do that in my sleep. And so when you build a big audience online, you don't have to work that hard because you're not serving each of them individually. You're serving them all at the same time. And so, I mean, if you were to ask me what my day looks like, I would say I work, 3 hours a day. And after that, I'm just kind of chilling. I'm not that hard of a worker. I'm a smart worker more than anything else.
So when you had this idea to start Underground Wellness as an entrepreneur, that you could make it successful, you had that belief. And then in 2015, you chose to end the show, thankfully having me on before you did that. And why? Like, why did you quit?
I think life has seasons, and that season was over.
How long did you know the season was ending? Like, how long did you have the feeling that like, I don't know if this is it anymore?
Probably a good year. Or I was like, this is great. It's helping a lot of people. It's making a lot of money. But at the same time, I'm not sure how many different ways you can encourage people to eat real food. There's only so many different, there's only so many different ways to say it. And also I felt like, after 7 years of interviewing people and being in this space, that one thing I always say is, let's say you have a problem. Maybe you have headaches. And this week, the person who was on the show would say it's your adrenal fatigue. And then last week, it was the vitamin D person. So they're going to say it was the vitamin D deficiency. And the week before that, it's the ancestral foods person who says you're not eating enough liver. And the week before that, it was and it's just, I felt like there was a little bit of like, what do you call it? Orthorexia, right? Going on where, I felt like I was making people paranoid. And I got kind of tired of this, like the same thing. Like every week it was somebody just saying that your problem was because of the thing that they fix. And it just didn't sit very well with me. And, in this last few months of considering bringing back the podcast, I'm like, how am I going to deal with that? Well, I think I'm just not going to do that. We're just going to talk about food and kind of society and kind of like what goes on behind the scenes in the food industry, like those kind of things. But do I want to get back into talking about physiological, breakdowns and dysfunctions and how your problem is caused by 15 different things with 15 different guests? Probably not. That's not really what I want to do. And so it got to the point where I was just a little tired of it. I remember a couple things vividly. I was on a webinar with Dr. Tom O'Brien. I love Dr. Tom. He's a cool dude.
I do too.
Of course, he's a celiac and gluten expert. And I was having a headache that night. And, he was talking about the Cyrex panel. And he says, "Oh, Sean, you have a headache tonight. Have you done the Cyrex panel? Because maybe you have gluten sensitivity." And I remember I shouldn't have done this. I said, I think it's kind of ridiculous that for every little problem somebody has, they need to go do a Cyrex panel. And I said this in front of people. It just came out, like the frustration came out, but that's just truly how I was feeling at the time. And then I had Steve Silberman on the show talking about a book called Neurotribes, which is a really good book about autism. And I had done a few episodes about autism, and it never goes well because whatever you put out there, the other side's going to come after you.
Yes.
And I remember I told myself, don't do any more shows on autism. And I did it anyway. And his book is so good. But I wanted people to know about this. And, we talked about some of the overlooked reasons why autism has gone up since whatever year it was, right? Awareness, because Rain Man came out. There was an actual typo in one of the DSMs. Instead of and, it said or, right? And so I wrote an email about this and sent it out, and I just got crucified for like a week. Like, people are calling me. Nobody ever calls me. People are calling me about this. And I think that was also part of my thinking behind getting out of it. Like, fuck you guys. I'm kind of getting tired of this anyway. I'll see you later in about a month. And so I think that anger, in a way, fueled the end of Underground Wellness. Yeah.
That's interesting. I had a few moments. I was running an online cooking school. It was primarily what I did for 10 years, where someone asked me if it was okay to eat the skin off chickpeas that you cook from scratch at home. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're soaking the beans, you're cooking the beans, just eat the beans. Like, the skin, not inconsequential. Like, this stuff does not matter. And and getting hatred for whether it's a mistake you make even with the best of intentions, or a belief that's out of alignment with other people, the anger online became extreme. That I too was like, I don't need to do this. I don't need to hold space for any of this anymore. And it does become overwhelming. I'm still waiting. Sorry, go on.
No, you're still waiting. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, with this new topic I'm covering, like, it's going to anger someone. I'm just not sure where yet. Like, I haven't found the angle that's going to piss off some community, but I trust it will, because that's the nature of being online these days.
Yeah, you can't make everybody happy. Like, what do you do to deal with these people? Like, do you meditate? Do you do you go talk to somebody about it? Like, how do you release the anxiety or the anger?
It's a great question. I think I've gotten, like you, to the point of just being like, this isn't a Meghan problem. This is, and even to the point where when I launched a new course on money, and in my opening, I said, like, I may say things that trigger you. You might be angered by examples I give, but ultimately I'm delivering information with the best of intentions. So it's not me, it's you. And that's even when I had a team and they would get these messages, I would just say, like, we're not the punching bag. So you don't have to accept it. You don't have to respond. You don't have to engage with it. And ultimately we meditate to a place where we can have empathy and compassion for someone who goes through their day with that view, looking for everyone to be making them the victim or offending them. And I teach my child, I have an 8-year-old son, like, offense is a choice. You can choose to be offended by something, or you can choose not to be. And I always ask him, his name's Finley, is this a Finley problem or is this a so-and-so? And so help him understand that it's not always him, or it's not always his fault. Sometimes it is, like, he's an 8-year-old and he can be a rascal. Yeah. And sometimes it's completely independent. And I think that's what I've come to learn, at least over, being on the internet for 17 years.
Yeah. Most of the time it has nothing to do with you.
No.
It's their experiences and their beliefs and, the sense of significance that they get from being offended, the community that they're able to build around that identity of being offended and being a victim. There's a lot of goodies that you get from being a victim and from being offended. And so it's hard to people to break away from that, because it's who they are.
Yes.
If without being offended, without being a victim, they don't know who they are anymore. And that's a very scary thing, especially when, they get so much community out of it. If I stop being offended, then I'm going to be alone. If I'm alone, then I'm defenseless. I'm unprotected. And my old survival brain, my tribal hunter-gatherer brain, does not like the idea of being alone and isolated, because the wolves and the woolly mammoths may come and get me. And it's just the way we're wired. We have some old school wiring. The brain needs an operating system update, and we just haven't had one in a really long time.
Right. I remember my very first experience was after I'd been healing from this autoimmune disease, going into support groups. Like, I think at the time it was chat rooms before it was even Facebook groups. And people would be like sharing, they have Crohn's and here's their diets they're on, their elemental diets and all these things. And I was like, well, you guys can heal, like, try bone broth and try this. And I got bullied out of that group so fast. I was like, okay, keep your name.
You're offering a fix?
Yeah.
I don't want to fix this.
No,
I just want to talk about it. I just want to connect with people over it.
Yeah, I want my disease in my profile. It's part of my bio, and away we go. But I think a lot of that is people's attachment to identity.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to you, you were a health podcaster, and then you changed your mind about what you wanted to do.
Yeah. Before we get to that, I do want to throw a caveat out there. I don't want to make it sound like I have no compassion for people who want to heal. I struggle with people who are just so attached to their problem that they're kind of not even really looking for a way to heal. They're just looking for a way to connect. And I get that. But, anyway, so you're asking me about moving on. So, one thing that I noticed toward the end of Underground Wellness is that, what I was reading, I was mostly reading personal development books. When I had to read a new book, because, when someone came on the show, I wouldn't only read their most recent book, I would read all of their books. Right. And, I'd be going through whatever Tony Robbins book, and I'd be like, damn, I got to stop and I got to read such and such's book. And I was like, I'd rather apply this model that I'm doing in health to something that I really enjoy, like 100% enjoy. And so I decided to move on from Underground Wellness and create a personal development podcast. Well, first I took a year off. There lots of money in the bank account. We just did a whole bunch of online summits, made millions of dollars. I'm like, time out. I'm just going to chill and do nothing, which I tend to do sometimes. And started a podcast, the Sean Croxton Sessions. And
wait. Stop. Back up. I couldn't find anything about this year off. And I'd actually forgotten that you were like the summit king for a while. They were amazing. What did you do in that year? Like you had a lot of money. You didn't have to work. You had no dependents. So what did that year look like?
I traveled a little bit. I dated a lot. I sat in my hot tub a lot. I worked out a lot. I ate a lot. If you look at pictures of me in 2015, like I'm fat, right? Portly. And that was read a lot. And that was really it. Time kind of flew by, but it was nice to get some time off. Yeah. Yeah. And doing the online summits, I kind of miss doing those online summits. It was fun. I always say that I kind of reinvented that whole online summit model back in the day.
A friend of mine wants to bring them back.
I think it might be time to bring those back. But here's the thing, like it's got to be a really fascinating topic that people want to hear about. Like we did really good topics, thyroid, digestive problems, on and on. But also the interviews have to be good. And I think that's what, like, I stopped watching summits a long time ago, but when I stopped watching because the interviews were just so bad. Right. And so if you want to do online summits, your friend who wants to do them, make sure you put in the time and the study and the effort into making those interviews really good. Then people will tune in and then people will buy them as well.
Did you, in that year, have any concerns or worry or thoughts about like what was next? Did you have enough money to never have to work again? Were you in a mindset of this is just a pause and the next thing will come to me? Did you know what you wanted to do, but you just wanted to wait it out a bit?
I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to interview personal development experts and authors. There was, in hindsight, knowing what I know about compound interest and personal finance, I probably didn't have to work much after that. You know what I mean? If I would have invested that money back then, I'd be a multi-millionaire. But just boneheaded mistakes. Didn't really know what I was doing back then. But yeah. I wanted to start a podcast, just like Underground Wellness, but just with a different, genre of speakers. And then I did that. I only did 22 episodes of Sean Croxton Sessions. I did that first one with Bob Proctor. Can't recall who the last one was with. It was, who it was supposed to be with? Danielle Laporte. And she wasn't actually supposed to be the last one. She was supposed to be the next one. And like episode 23. And I read her book, White Hot Something. And it really hit me because she's essentially saying, do what you're super passionate about. Don't do something because you're supposed to do it or because people think you're supposed to do it. Like, just do what you really want to do. If it's not lighting you up, then don't do it. And I'm not going to say that interviewing people wasn't lighting me up. What I didn't like was the prep process, because I'm a nut when it comes to prep. I have to nail it and I need the person on the other end to be like, oh my God, that's the best interview I've ever given before. Thank you so much. Can I have your phone number? I want to be friends. Like, I want to be excellent at everything that I do. And so, I wrote a newsletter and a blog post about that and just decided to move on and do something different.
So just to go back for a minute, because I listened to the Bob Proctor one as I texted you about, and he said, this is the best interview I've ever done. Did that put pressure on you for the balance of them? Like, you hit a home run on your first game.
That ruined me.
Did it?
That absolutely ruined me. Oh yeah. Yeah. While I appreciate him saying that, for the first episode of a new podcast, he could not have said something worse, to be honest.
And I just said it to you too.
Yeah, I actually wrote a blog post about this. I think it's called How Bob Proctor Ruined Me. And I'm like, literally, like, I remember my assistant like took a picture of me like laying on my driveway, like crying, just like faking like I'm like, he ruined me with that, because it was my first interview on a brand new podcast. And Bob Proctor, the legend that he is, we'll say, says that I'm the best interviewer he's seen in 55 years. Awesome. Text people about it. Look what Bob Proctor said. And then you're getting ready for the next episode and you're like, fuck, how do I top that?
Right.
Like, how do I make that better? How do I live up to the audience's expectations for the quality of the interview? And the man who I was interviewing for episode number 2 was a friend of Jake Ducey. And, he connected us, but it wasn't the ideal guy to interview after Bob Proctor, because the book was good, but the book wasn't great. And he was young, so there wasn't a whole lot of story to tell. And I felt like that second episode was kind of a letdown. Maybe it's more in my head. It was a letdown for me, but I was in my head, I'm thinking this is probably going to be a letdown for the audience. And so, yeah, it did kind of ruin me in a way. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't joking when I said I was nervous to interview you because of that. But I also recognize that I have no desire to be the best interviewer, but I know that I have a natural curiosity. So I was like, I will approach this with my natural curiosity and hope that's sufficient. But it's interesting because that could also have been like a stamp of approval to say, like, even your not your best effort will still be exceptional, but you wanted that standard maintained.
Yeah, it's got to be the best, and people can psychoanalyze that and whatever, but I just feel like if you're going to do something, you might as well be the very best at what you're doing. Yeah, it's my jam. I used to love those interviews. Sometimes I'm like, I want to start interviewing people again, but we'll see. I just have to learn maybe I need some therapy around that, how to not read their entire book catalog 3 times over before interviewing them.
Well, we can unpack that towards the end. So you've ultimately, in all the work you're doing, and I want to talk about what you're doing now, but you've always, from Real Food, challenged people's mindset and belief around lifestyle and what they're doing and what they're told and what's real. So let's talk about money. So you moved from the sessions and then you created a course around money mindset and that sort of thing. Was that through your own learning that came about?
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit, in terms of like the segue here. And so it didn't just end with the Sean Croxton sessions. I was driving down the 5 freeway from the Bay Area to San Diego, I don't know, 3 or 4 years before I quit the Sean Croxton sessions. And I'm on Sirius XM, listening to Sirius XM, and they've got this comedy station where they play clips of comedy shows. And I was like, I would listen to this if it was nothing but motivational talks all day. And I was like, maybe I'll create something with that. And I just kind of put it on the back burner. And because I was so, obsessive about preparing for podcast interviews, I was like, what's something I can do that's really easy? And so I started up the Quote of the Day show, which is a show that features short clips of motivational talks. And so I do the front end, I do the back end. I probably talk for a max of 2 minutes. And in the middle, we put the clip. And I was like, oh, we'll just do this and see where it goes. Nobody's ever done this before. And it turned out to become very successful. And I'm really happy about that, while also cutting back on the study time, the prep time.
Right.
And so then from there, after I launched Quote of the Day show, that's when I got into the money part. And the reason why I'm so fascinated with money is because, we all know what we should do with money. I think we all get the basics.
Do we?
Yeah, we get the basics.
Okay, tell me your idea of the basics, because I'm not convinced that people know what they should do with their money.
Live below your means.
Yes.
Save your money, invest your money, be patient, know how compound interest works, match your 401k. And that's really it, to be honest. Don't try to act rich or look rich, because usually those people are the brokest people, deep in debt. I think it's really straightforward. The question is, why don't we do it?
Right.
That's the thing. Like, why are we not doing this? Got to be some mindset thing going on here. And one thing that I noticed when I was working with health coaching clients was the ones who got the best results were the ones who actually did what I asked them to do. And those were the people who had the best mindsets. The people who didn't have the greatest mindsets, they just would never do it. And they would complain all the time. It's like, yo, I've told you what to do. It's just got to kind of do it. And so I created Money Mind Academy. And mostly we just we get into why people aren't doing what they should be doing. And the 3 pillars of that were release your limiting beliefs, silence your self-talk, and master your emotions is, the 3 things that people really need to do around money. Because, and we also kind of broke it down into a kind of like a brain-based model as well. And I think what most people don't know is that there is a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC. Your ACC is like your conflict detector. It monitors your actions and your decisions for conflicts. And so when you have an intention, to have financial freedom, which is going to require most likely at least $1 million, at least $1 million. And, but you also have these beliefs. So you have an intention, I want to be a millionaire, but your beliefs are rich people are greedy, rich people are miserable. If for you to make more money, somebody has to have less, money doesn't grow on trees, there's not enough to go around, yada, 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 then you ain't gonna make no money because you're running a conflict. The red light on the ACC starts blinking, sends a message to your amygdala. You start to feel anxiety, sends a message to your prefrontal cortex, which is, your planning, your goal setting, action orientation, shuts all that stuff down. You're like, oh my God, I just sabotaged myself for the 9th time when it comes to this basic financial plan that somebody has put me on. It's just because you've got all these limiting beliefs that you learned, when you were a child that you've never re-examined as an adult. And most of the stuff that we believe about money is absolutely absurd. It is absurd. Lesson number 3 of Money Mind Academy, we would talk about beliefs. It's like 90-minute class. And by the end of that class, people will be like, my students would be like, I fucking can't believe I believe that stuff. Like, that's wild. I'm like, yeah, you've been carrying that around for 30, 40 years. It's absolutely nuts. Rich people are miserable. Who? Give me like 4 names. Trump. Kardashians. Okay. How do you know? How do you know the Kardashians are miserable? Do you know their therapist? Have you talked to them? Like, how do you know? Oh, I really don't know. Just things like that really simply get people to go, oh my God, like, how do I believe this? It's wild. And so, Money Mind Academy was really great. I'm actually working on relaunching that next month. I haven't taught that in 4 years.
When did because you said you took the year off after Underground Wellness and you had lots of money, didn't use it appropriately. I've seen a photo of you with a very fancy car. So when did your value set and mindset around money shift, and what triggered that shift?
I've had a couple shifts around money mindset. Number one was maybe back in 2008-ish, 9-ish, where I had a humongous YouTube following and podcast following, but I was still broke. And I remember I was in my apartment, the one that smelled like shrimp every day. It's like perma shrimp smell. It smells so bad. A little studio apartment downtown San Diego. And it clicked. So I said, I don't know why it clicked, but I was like, oh my gosh, like I was raised for not my whole life, but a good portion of my life. You know, I have so much contrast in my upbringing. From birth to 10, living with both parents, we had money. Like my dad made really good money. Like my dad, like today's dollars, probably about half $500,000 a year, you know, growing up in Oakland, big house, multiple cars, basketball in the back, toy room, everything that we wanted, went to private school, on and on. After my parents got divorced, then my dad didn't chip in for anything. And so he wasn't even around at all. And so it was just my mom's, you know, paycheck trying to raise two boys in California. And it was really different. The contrast, like I know what it's like to do really well. I know what it's like to be like eating government cheese, you know, sucks. And so, but part of that was hearing, oh, those rich, greedy people, they this, they that. And it dawned on me moving forward to 2008, 2009, having this huge YouTube following and, you know, not having any money, was like, oh my God, I don't want to be one of them. You know, I've been raised all my life that the people who have money, that's them. They're bad. They're terrible. They're miserable. You know, they steal. What are people going to think of me if I actually do well in life? You know, and I think that was the big moment for me where I was like, oh, aha. And I think number two was a John DeMartini interview that a friend of mine, actually he's not a friend anymore, he's a terrible person, sent me. And Dr. DeMartini talks about values and how your life is a reflection of what you value and what you find to be important. And he has this values questionnaire that you do. And, you know, he says if wealth building is not in your top 5 values, you're probably broke. And when I did the questionnaire, you know, like number 1 was maybe my health and fitness. Number 2 was my social life. Number 3 was like shoes. Number 4 was something else. I can't remember, but wealth building was like number 9. And I was like, oh, this is why I'm broke. And one thing he recommends doing, this is what I do in like session 5 of Money Mind Academy, if not sooner, is we do a linking exercise where it's like, okay, health and wellness, you know, might be gym membership, might be home exercise equipment, might be a grass-fed beef and, you know, natural foods, on and on and on. Okay, how can being financially free or just simply making more money benefit your health and your wellness? Okay, I can get an Equinox membership where they have everything. I can get a personal trainer. I can buy all the good food that I want without really batting an eye. You know, I can have a room in my home where it's my own personal home gym. Okay. All right. What about your social life? Okay. We can go out to eat at places where, you know, I typically don't eat because I can't afford it. We'll be able to do this and do that. And so this linking process really helped me to understand like how having more money can make my life better and can make all the important things to me better than they were. And that exercise itself just really, really changed my life.
That's incredible. And I think it goes back to your own discipline as well, like your commitment to learn and openness to keep changing your mind as well to new information, which I think is part of what enables those of us who are entrepreneurs to keep creating and doing new things, is being able to change our minds about ourselves and the information we're taking in and applying it in our lives. You mentioned
being open-minded. Open-minded, I'm sorry, is like a trait of successful people is open-mindedness. If you're closed-minded, you're never going to do anything new because you're not allowing anything else to be applied to your life. You were saying?
Well, you mentioned in passing about a friend who's not a friend who sent you something. I'm curious because you've gone through, I don't even want to call it an evolution, but you're constantly evolving your thinking and reimagining what's possible and looking at things differently. And we're going to get to what you're doing now with Black Excellence. But have you lost a lot of relationships through your own shifts in mindset and how you're living?
Yes, lots of them.
How do you deal with that?
I think it's a tough question because sometimes that's challenging. right?
Yeah.
When your friend pool just shrinks up like really small and there's only so many people there. I can't say it doesn't bother me at all. I don't know. I don't really know how to answer this question. I just think in order to move up in the video game of life, you're going to have to leave people on the level that you were on, and, keep, and I shouldn't say it in that way. I think Bob Proctor would say it really well. He would say, go less often, don't stay as long, and I think that's been part of my philosophy. There are people that I just don't hang out with as much as I used to. Also, I mean, part of this is, I moved from somewhere where I was at for 20 something years to Arizona, where I knew nobody. And so building a new friend group when you're 40 something years old is a pretty challenging thing when you're in a new state. And so I think those two things have been challenging in terms of like finding a new group of people to hang out with. But, the people I hang out with here in Arizona, really, really cool people. They may not be on the same page as me when it comes to like entrepreneurship and success and all of that stuff, but they're really great people to hang out with. You know what I'm saying? Like I love my Arizona crew. However, I also think that when I was doing underground wellness, like I had a clique, clique of homies, in this space. And I think we've kind of like grown apart over this last 10 years. And I think that's kind of like the natural course of events that happen, especially because I'm not in that space anymore.
Right. Do you ever have that feeling like, why can't I just be quiet on controversial topics? Can I just be neutral and not do you think that's part of it?
No, I don't think so at all. No. I mean, there have been 3 or 4 like real friends, like college friends I've known for 20 years who were like, we're done, over like politics and whatnot.
Yeah.
If you're going to drop a friend over politics, fuck you. You're an asshole. Like you're an idiot. I mean, this is stupid. Like we're homies for 20 years and you're just going to be like, oh, I'm good because of this. Like I'm not sure if we were really homies, if that's the case. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
Yeah, and I want to hear your side of this as well. But your question was what? Why do I have to be controversial? Like, what was the?
No,
the question?
I guess, I mean, my side of it is that I'm outspoken and I often am against the grain or against the popular narrative or against what people who are in, whether it's holistic or whether it's the good people of Canada or whatever it may be, I'm often not in alignment with them. And sometimes I'm like, why can't I just keep my thoughts to myself and just like stay? I call it tapioca. Like it's a flavorless substance, just holds things together in cooking. It's like, can't I just be more tapioca? And I can't be because it's not my nature. But it does, I grieve and mourn friendships that were ended, like 30-year friendships that were ended by someone unfollowing me on Instagram. And that was the end of it. Which is shocking. Like it's shocking and it's still hurtful. And I wish I could have your FU attitude, but I'm still like, yeah, it didn't have to be that way. Like that wasn't necessary.
But it's not your problem. I mean, it's kind of your problem, but it didn't come from you. No. It came from them and their inability to be able to hold space for 2 different ways of seeing things.
Yeah.
That's how we learn. I was reading a book, the Jewish Phenomenon, and it's like these 7 different reasons or ways that Jewish people are successful. And one of them is, they discuss both sides. There's a lot of open-mindedness there. And I think in my community, there's not a whole lot of discussion of both sides. Right. It's like, you need to believe this. You need to be part of this groupthink. You need to toe this black card line. And if you don't, then you're an Uncle Tom, you're a Sambo, you're a coon, you're a whatever. And it's like, I'm not sure how we grow from that.
Right.
If you can't argue both sides, you probably don't know what you're talking about in the first place. But when you don't even know what the other side is, like that's a cage that you've put yourself in, And I think that needs to stop. It doesn't make any sense to me at all, like why anybody would do that. And, to me, some of the things I share on Instagram or in my podcast, like I don't really see them as like controversial. Like to me, they're just common sense.
Yes.
You know, there's kind of common sense things. And, you know, what I've learned over the last 15, 16, 17 years that I've been online is that common sense usually wins the day, you know, where it's like, you're here and everybody else is kind of over here and they're saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Da, da, da. But as time goes by, they end up where you were, you know, they end up moving forward and you're like, dude, I told you 10 years ago.
I know.
We told you 10 years ago that saturated fat wasn't that bad for you. We told you 10 years ago that, you know, that the meat wasn't going to kill you and the eggs weren't going to kill you, right? We told you years ago that those dyes cause cancer. You just didn't want to listen. It just kind of made common sense to me. Like there's real food and there's not so real food, fake food, chemical food that you put into your body every single day without even thinking about it. You know, it's kind of nuts. And then we can, you know, I don't want to talk about COVID stuff, but you know, there's just so many things where you're just like, oh, this is common sense. You just have to use your noodle and just think about things a little bit. But it just, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. There's people have a hard time with cognitive dissonance. You know, we are just looking, we wear these filters, these glasses throughout our lives that just filter out all of the evidence that counters what we believe in, and all we see is what we do believe in. And whenever we get a glimpse that there's evidence that we may be wrong, then we're like, oh shit, I've got two different ideas that are completely antithetical to each other. What do I do? I could choose what I already believe, and that's easy, right? I can keep my friends, I can keep my connections, I can keep my sense of identity. Then there's this other idea that kind of makes sense, and there's evidence for this as well. But you know what? This requires work. This requires me like taking apart my identity a little bit. This requires me to humble myself and say, oh my gosh, I was wrong about something for so long. This requires me to, you know, have to show and to my friends that I don't believe everything that they believe in anymore. And so I put myself at risk of being isolated and not part of the tribe anymore. I'm just going to go over here and continue believing what I've been believing, even if I know this other thing exists, but I'm going to push that and I'm going to compartmentalize it and I'm going to put it over here and act like it's not there. And this is how most people live their lives. The brain does not want to burn too many calories, and changing your beliefs and opening up your mind requires too much of a caloric burn. And it's hard, you know?
That is a beautiful explanation of why people stay stuck in a life that is fully out of alignment with their soul, with their heart, with what they know to be true. And it creates their own suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
It's
really hard for people. It's hard.
Do you still find it hard?
No, not anymore. No. And I think the reason why is because people are catching up to what I've been talking about, especially when it comes to like, you know, socio-political things that I talk about on Instagram, or that I post about on Instagram. Yeah. People are starting to come along. And so it's like, there's this pattern, you know, human beings, we tend to look for patterns. And the pattern is I say something, and I'm not right all the time, but I say something, and a few years later, people are like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. You know, oh, okay, I believe it now. It's just, and it's okay. It's okay. I don't mind taking the hard route.
So let's talk about the socio-political things you post on Instagram and challenging the narratives in your new-ish, it's fairly new, podcast, Black Excellence. What inspired you to do that? Do you want to just explain what it is, what you're doing?
Black Excellence Daily is essentially the same format as the Quote of the Day show. But in this case, I feature Black speakers, Black authors, experts, who are calling for personal responsibility, accountability, constant, never ending learning, and also building your own business. And the reason why I've done that is because, and I've been essentially doing the same thing on my Instagram channel for a couple of years now. I'm doing this because we need exposure to more of these voices. You know, unfortunately in the Black community, there's too, you know, our Black leaders in quotes, these are just horrible people. They're just horrible, terrible people. I don't understand how they can do whatever they do. It's all victimhood. There's no accountability. You're not responsible for anything. It's all external locus of control. There is no sense of agency. It's always somebody else is supposed to swoop in and fix your life. And how's that been working? And, just because you have darker skin for some reason, it means that you're not capable of building a prosperous life. Systemic racism is going to get you. And it's like, I'm not going to say that there's zero systemic racism, but I'm also going to say like you can create whatever you want to create. There are so many examples of Black people and minorities who have done amazing things with their lives despite racism. People say, oh, Sean, you're saying there's no racism. Like, I'm not saying there's no racism. I'm saying go do it, even though there is racism. Like, go do it. Like, don't let any racist stop you. One thing I like to say is I spend a couple hours every day, at least, like reading and, developing as a person, also developing my skills. And, all of these years I've been reading and developing myself, no white person has ever broken into my apartment and smacked the book out of my hand. It's never happened before. And so there's like this boogeyman that we've been raised to believe in. There's this boogie white man who's going to come and burn everything down if you build something up. And it's like, I don't know, in my lifetime, I really haven't seen white people burn down much of anything in the Black community aside from white Black Lives Matters protesters burning down Black neighborhoods and Black people doing it alongside of them. It doesn't make any sense. And so, yeah, it's a positive podcast, and I enjoy sharing my thoughts about personal responsibility and accountability and entrepreneurship. And it's been really fun so far. And I was a little nervous. It took me a little while to do this. I was a little bit nervous about it, but I did it, and the response has been amazing.
What part made you nervous?
The part I have this thing in my head. It's like, you're blaming the victim, you're saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I'm not blaming the victim, but I am saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're going to have to pull yourself up. Yes, you're going to need people there to help you. You're going to need, of course, we can't do anything alone, but it's this, stop telling people to pull themselves up. Then what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't understand. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, this is your responsibility. Like, your circumstances, all of this is your responsibility to fix. You are able to respond to your current circumstances. So you're going to have to do that. But for some reason, we're not supposed to encourage people to do that. It's really weird. I'm supposed to sit around and wait for somebody to come fix my life. I don't think any other group of people does this, to be honest. And, I'm fascinated by Jewish culture and the success that the Jewish people have had, and, many different cultures as well. But the Jews, they fascinate me because there's been so much persecution for centuries, having to move from here to there, and all these things that have happened, this trauma and tragedy that have happened. But as a group, they seem to hold it together and keep moving forward despite all the bullshit that goes on. And I wish my community had more of that. But I think because of this whole idea of being closed-minded and this whole idea of only getting to say what people approve of in the community, I think we're a little bit lost right now. And that's why I have this podcast, to help people to see, oh my gosh, there are other Black people who are saying this. Prominent Black people who are saying that I can create a better life. And so that's what we're doing.
I'm Jewish. I don't know if you knew that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My grandparents were Holocaust survivors and immigrated to Canada after the Holocaust. And it's remarkable to me what they were able to do. And I think of that often. I'm like, if they could, my grandmother started a business. My mom grew up living in, they lived above the store, my grandmother's store. They saved enough money. My grandfather bought a small hotel in Winnipeg, a small city in Canada. And they pulled themselves up, and we live this beautiful life. And we're that work ethic has instilled in me that there's no reason why I can't succeed. I had none of that, none of that. So why couldn't I? My son, it's funny because my son said to me, I mentioned his age, and he said to me, why are Jewish people so rare? And I'm like, I'm not ready to answer this question. I went straight to persecution, which lost him right away.
Yeah.
which wasn't the right answer. Last night, we were driving home from my parents' house, and my son is in Montessori. So he learns by observation, like non-judgmental observation. He observes things. He has said to me, we've talked about people with different skin color. And I asked why. And he said, well, they come from different parts of the world. And he describes it as it being like how squirrels have different color fur. That's how he describes it. Last night we're driving home and he says to me, I've observed that many of the garbage men have darker skin. And I did not know how to respond to that. I didn't want to get into, again, we have not talked to my son about the Holocaust. We don't talk about race with him. We don't talk about sexuality because there's no need. For him, it's just people. They're just people. Yeah. They have different orientations. They have different organizations of their family. Like it's a non-issue. So we have not addressed any of it. And I just didn't know how to respond. Because my thinking was to talk about how different people grow up in different circumstances.
Yeah.
But so much of it is just around their own beliefs about what they can do and what they're capable of. And I said, and maybe they enjoy their job. I didn't want to plant anything for him. And I wanted to leave it as an observation.
Mm-hmm. That was probably the right thing to do. Also, we need garbage men.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if we didn't have garbage men, garbage women? Like there'd be a lot of garbage on the street and things would smell a lot. And so, everybody kind of fills their role in our society. Some love what they do, like you said. Some do it because they want to. I think also some do particular jobs or live certain lives because, self-image, just the way that they were raised to see themselves. I love when I talk about self-image, I talk about this one day when I went to Trader Joe's to grab some food up the street when I lived in San Diego. And, I parked my car maybe 30 feet away from the door right there on the curb. And the store, Trader Joe's store was right kind of at a busy intersection at San Diego State University. And I remember coming out of the store with my shopping cart, got like 2 or 3 bags in there. And I'm, going to my car, pushing my cart, and all of a sudden it stops. It locks up. What do we usually do? We give it another push, like it's going to keep going, but it's locked up because it has one of those perimeter settings on it where it can only go so far and it's going to lock up. And so I pulled out my bags and walked them to my car and I drove home. And one of the reasons why the wheels locked up was because they didn't want carts going into the busy street, the busy intersection there. So I get it. But when I was driving home, I was like, that's a really good kind of metaphor for your self-image. Your self-image says, here's how far you can go in life. This is how you see yourself, even though the possibility's right there, because you see yourself this way, because you've placed or had others place these particular limitations on you. This is how far as you go. And there are many people who grow up believing that, I am capable of becoming a garbage man. I am capable of becoming this or that or the other. Then you have others who are like, I feel like I'm capable of becoming a doctor, some type of professional. And why is that? Because their parents, all of their lives said, you're going to become a professional or you're going to become a business owner. Right. I was watching something the other day because, one of my things is like, okay, I'm Black, community's Black. We've got these other Black people, Nigerians, who are crushing it. Right. And I'm watching something the other day on YouTube and she said she's a comedian, but she said, she's Nigerian. She says in Nigeria, you're either a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, or a failure. Right. And I was like, oh, that's so Jewish of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love that. I love that. Like they were raised like, yo, if you want to do well in life, if you want to have money and security and freedom, then you're going to have to own your own business or you're going to have to become a professional. But a lot of us, we didn't get that. A lot of us got none of that, to be honest. Like I don't, when I went to college, I didn't know what a major was. I had no idea. I just knew I was just going somewhere to learn stuff. I didn't know anything about anything because nobody was there to really teach me, because nobody in my family had that experience before. There were no professionals. There were no doctors, no lawyers, no anything in my family. So I didn't know. And sometimes people are just raised. Actually, a lot of times people just don't know, and it wasn't encouraged. And also, if I grew up poor and everybody worked certain jobs, what makes me think that I can be a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist or something like that? You know, that's a really uncomfortable thing. How do you fit in?
Right.
You know, you don't fit in anymore.
No.
It's wild. Everything really goes back to like love and connection. It's like, how do I stay loved and connected to my tribe of people? And what are the threats to that protection? And a lot of times success is a threat to that protection, and we'll just pull ourselves back. The other day I saw on Instagram, Chris Tucker, the comedian / actor, when he got his first $20 million movie role, his whole family quit their jobs. And he's like, what y'all doing? You guys better go back to work, you know? And that goes back to something I'll be teaching soon in Money Mind Academy, is like, we are wired to share, you know? Because if you think about growing up in our hunter-gatherer tribes, for you to save something, that's crazy. What do you mean you're saving something just for you? What do you mean you're saving something for the future? We get by day to day here. Like, what are we talking about? What are you doing? Saving something for yourself and not sharing with your tribe will get you killed. And so we're still wired that way. It's antisocial to save. It's antisocial to invest in the future. It's antisocial to do anything that's beyond instant gratification. And so our brains suck us back in to this kind of old hunter-gatherer mentality because our brains haven't adapted to this new world that we're living in. It's all screwed up.
I think what you're saying applies, like, you know, we talk about children and them growing up in a world where they're told what they can be or that they could be anything, but also into adulthood. It's the same thing. You know, the topic of what I'm exploring here is, you know, what stops us from making the moves we know we need to make. And it's just that. It's the fear of being isolated and being left without your tribe. And it holds children back from exploring what they're capable of and what they love and what they're passionate about. And it holds adults back from pursuing what they love and are capable of and can truly bring to the world that is a gift.
Yeah.
When you challenge people's, you know, identification as a victim of their circumstance, what have you seen is effective at breaking through that identity that, like, well, you know, this is how it is. This is how I was raised. This is the world I'm in. This is the color of my skin. You know, I can't, who am I to be more or do more?
I think part of it is helping them to see what they couldn't see before, which is usually their beliefs, which is their upbringing, which is the things we just talked about, not fitting in. People, they're not aware of that. They don't even know what's going on. It's just like code running in the background. They don't even know about. I think that is very helpful to people. Also showing them examples of, you know, people who have the same skin color that have succeeded before. I was reading Michael Easter's book. Anyway, I can't remember the name of it. It's probably right here somewhere. Anyway, but one of the chapters he wrote about was in Rome, I believe. You know, military might was a big deal. And that was a source of like prestige and wealth. And in people's homes, they would essentially have statues of their ancestors. And it's like, this is such and such, and he did the battle of this and the other. This is such and such, and he was a general here, and this is such and such, and this is your great uncle, and this is your great aunt, this is your and you know, you get to walk through this every day and be like, holy shit, look what my family has done. This is wild. This is crazy. This is amazing. And it puts the pressure on you to do something great with your life. And I think a lot of people, especially, you know, Black folks, we don't grow up with those kind of rooms. We grew up with slavery, right? We grew up with Jim Crow. We grew up with like coloreds only water fountains. You know, we grow up with these, with not enough examples of the amazing things that people have been able to do despite racism. We don't hear enough of those stories. And so some of the content that I post that gets the most traction and the most love, especially from Black people, is, you know, the ones where you know, a speaker is saying, hey, did you know that 20 former slaves became millionaires? And Black people go, what? For real? I've never heard that before. And so even though we don't have these rooms in our homes that pay homage to our ancestors, at least I can do my part to just show us like what that room would look like, you know? And, you know, and also to make us a little bit more, because I think that sometimes, because we so many of us believe that that there's a limit on to our success. Sometimes we delete all the examples of the people who have gone beyond that. And I just want to show people that there are people right now. You know, Carla Harris is the such and such at JP Morgan. You know, she's a big banker at JP Morgan. It's like, I had to emphasize that the other day on the podcast. She is the such and such of JP Morgan. She's a Black woman, JP Morgan, killing it. Like, you've been told all your life that you can't do that. Here's an example of somebody who did. And that's been really fun. And again, I so far, it's only been like 3 weeks or so since I've been doing the podcast, but, you know, I've been doing this on the Instagram account for a few years now. The feedback has been great. And every once in a while on the Instagram account, you get somebody who's like, F all this, I want my reparations. It's like, dude, you know, reparations would be nice, but we're not getting them. Like, get off of it, build your own business, make your own money, but sitting around waiting for some check ain't going to happen. And also, we should also keep in mind that not just Black folks, but people in general, if you can't manage the little amount of money that you have, wait until you see what happens when we get hundreds of thousands of dollars from the government. We're going to blow that shit real fast. I'm buying stock in Nike, right? I'm going to just, because we spend our money on bullshit. Like, we are, like Dr. George Fraser says, we are the world's greatest consumers is what we are, because we don't know how to manage our money. And so I think that one of the worst things for us, you know, would be to get reparations, because a year from then, not all of us, but a lot of us are going to be like, oh, you gave me all that money and I blew it all because you didn't show me how to manage it. It just becomes something else, right? You know? Now we want our financial literacy reparations, and it just never stops. Like, just fuck all that, part of my French, and just read, learn, take courses, take advantage of all the information that's on your phone, right? Take advantage of all the resources that are on your phone where you can actually start and build a business for free from your phone. It's never been easier. It's on your phone. And do something instead of waiting around for your reparations. It drives me crazy, as you can probably tell.
God, I love you. Oh, that was so well said. So well said and well explained. And important. You're doing very important work. You don't need to start underground wellness again if you don't need to, if you don't want to, if it's not in your heart. I was like, I can't make another smoothie. Like, I'm not teaching someone how to make a smoothie. At this point, it's on your phone, as you said. Like, you can find 1,000 million TikToks that are going to teach you that.
It's all right there. There are no excuses. It's all right there.
No, we're going to wrap this up, even though I don't want to. But what do you think our world would or could look like if more people followed sort of their inner knowing, or had been shown the way to infinite potential, that was instilled?
We'd be a much happier group of people, for sure. We wouldn't be so miserable. We wouldn't be comparing ourselves to others. I think we would just be, as Steve Harvey says, we would just be living in our gifts, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, taking what God gave us and just delivering it to other people, delivering joy and solutions to other people. So we'd be happier. We'd be serving more. I think that would be it. I think we would have a greater awareness of our possibilities, I guess. It's kind of a hard question to answer. It would just be a better world. There'd be more unity. I think there'd be a lot less division among different groups of people, because I think we would all understand, like I just said, we all bring our certain gifts to the world, and it's our responsibility to go out there and deliver them to other people. And I think there would be a lot less like comparing gifts, and I think that's really, I think politics would be different because they wouldn't be able to take advantage of people so easily. They wouldn't be able to divide people so easily. I think people would we'd be more free thinkers as well. And I think instead of like dividing ourselves into so many different communities, I mean, there's always going to be some of that, but I think there would be a lot less of that, where everybody's just kind of, I don't know. I'll never forget one day, and when I was in Oakland, I went to a bar in Oakland with a friend a long time ago, and there was like a real white collar guy, dressed up at the bar, and he's having a beer with a black guy who was super blue collar, and they're just having a good time, just talking. I was like, we need more of that. Like, I wish I would have taken a picture of it, because I think, in this world that we're talking about, there would be more of that. There's people accepting each other for who they are, connecting with each other without all of the stuff going on in our heads about our differences, and more about like how we're alike. I guess that's it. Good question.
Is there anything else you feel you want to share? Make this feel complete. Get people to brave making the big, bold changes that free them from their own self-made prisons.
I think it's just all pretty basic. First, I really enjoyed this. Like I said earlier before we came on the air, I haven't done one of these in a while. It's been really fun. But really simple. Turn off the TV, put your phone down, read, learn, discover the problem that you solve, go out there and solve it, surround yourself with good people. And that's it. And just realize that, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, you're going to die one day. So you might as well, live this life to, live your life, in a way where, when your life is about to be over, you just don't have any sense of like regret over what you didn't do. That's really it.
Beautiful. I want everyone to go and subscribe to Black Excellence Daily. I'm loving it. I don't get to it every day because I just don't have that luxury of time right now. Although I every episode I listen to, I'm writing something down. It's so excellent. Your gift of distilling and finding like the golden nuggets to share is really unique and really special. So thank you. Everyone go do that. Where else should everyone find you, follow you? What works best?
I have another podcast, The Quote of the Day Show, that has nothing to do with blackness at all. Just, different motivational speakers, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Lisa Nichols, Mel Robbins, on and on. And so that's on the various podcasting players, wherever podcasts are heard. Let's see what else. I'm on Instagram
your money
at Sean Croxton.
And your money course is coming back.
Yeah. It'll be back in just a few weeks. I should probably write this webinar today. I keep putting it off. It's all in my brain. I just have to just write it. But yeah, that's really it. Money Mind Academy is coming back. So if you have found that you sabotage yourself and that you're not following through on the basic financial principles, definitely check it out, because you're going to learn like how your beliefs and your values and your emotions are keeping you from doing those things. Because if you don't handle these things, if you don't remove these beliefs, then you're going to get to a point in your life where you're like, oh my God, I can't work, and how am I going to make any money? It's a I've seen this happen with a few people in my life, and I'm like, I can't let that happen. I can't be in a position where I'm going to run out of money. That's scary. That's a scary way to live the last 20 years of your life.
I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Sean. I think he is a brilliant thinker and a gift to the world right now in helping people think differently. And again, you don't have to agree, but there is so much power in the exercise of opening your mind to consider, what if that's the possibility? What if that's true? What if What if it can be like that? I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave a review. If you didn't, don't leave a review, okay? I don't want to hear it. Joking, but also not joking. Please subscribe, share it with a friend. I appreciate your support so much. For the full show notes, you can go to courageouspivot.com or find me on Substack, The Courageous Pivot, or Meghan Telpner. Search one of those, you'll find me. You'll also find our full show notes, links to everything Sean mentioned, as well as special offers on things that I love. Again, I want to thank you for being here. I appreciate you being on this journey, for having an open mind, for considering what's possible in the world, but first in your own world, in your own heart, the internal world of your heart and your life, and taking this journey to see where it may take you, whether it's a big, massive leap of a pivot or the small micro pivots. There's always something that we can shift to make life feel a little more easeful and for us to have a little more agency and empowerment over it. Thank you again for joining me, and I will see you again next week. Have a beautiful rest of your day.